Thinkorswim by TD Ameritrade is more than a trading platform. It's an entire trading experience that pushes you to be even better and just might change how you trade forever. Because once you experience Thinkorswim by TD Ameritrade, there's no going back.
Oh, yeah, I gotta take off.
Now, you downloaded the TD Ameritrade mobile app?
Yeah, actually, I'm taking one last look at my dashboard before we board.
And you have Thinkorswim mobile?
So I can finish analyzing the risk on this position.
You two are all set.
Choose the app that fits your investing style.
I'm Nicole Petalides, live on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, empowering investors every single market day. Tune in to the TD Ameritrade Network.
Welcome back to Next Gen Investing. Housing has, of course, been on the minds all year long, Jenny, and no exception at this point of the year as we round the final turn. Lennar has earnings coming up. Home builder, it's going to catch a lot of focus.
Yeah, and I need this housing market to normalize because right now rent, home prices, mortgages, everything's through the roof. And I need to see some signs of optimism here, which I guess we are still seeing. Especially, I mean, when looking at some of these home builders, they have reported actually pretty promising quarterly results, as we've already heard from several of Lennar's peers. So perhaps that could give us as consumers some optimism. But here to tell us more on what we can expect from their fourth quarter is Renita Young, Senior Markets Correspondent for the TD Ameritrade Network. So Renita, what are you seeing here ahead of their report?
Well, first, let me set the stage, Jenny. As we know, Lennar is one of the nation's largest home builders. But in October, we saw U.S. single-family home starts fall to the lowest that they've been in 2 years. That's the backdrop that Lennar is going to bring out its earnings on tomorrow after market. But right now, we can see that it does expect to have earnings per share estimated at $4.92. Revenues estimated to be at $10.24 billion. Earnings per share last quarter, by the way, it did beat expectations by quite a bit. And earnings per share last year did as well. But we're not too sure whether or not it's going to do the same this time around because we've had elevated prices in the housing market. We've had interest rates shoot up higher, more than double since the beginning of the year. And the share price, by the way, the last quarter that it beat analyst estimates by about 27 cents. The share price the next day rose about 2%. But right now, this stock is still down more than 20% this year. So we'll find out just a little bit more tomorrow on that earnings call.
I'm not going to say we're in uncharted waters, but we're in very different waters than we were a year ago at this time. No doubt about it. When it comes to the interest rate complex, which is so tightly related to names like Lennar building homes and ultimately selling those homes. One thing that stuck out to me, Renita, is I was seeing some data from Redfin looking ahead to next year. They expect home sales to fall to the lowest level since 2011, 16% next year to 4.3 million is the figure that they're predicting. But is there anything else that you have your eye on and the viewers should have their eye on here ahead of Lennar's report?
Well, I would keep my eye on it as a person who's still looking for a home to buy in this crazy real estate market. I'm looking at those prices and whether or not they are new homes or old homes, whether or not the housing starts are going to be trending in that area, as well as just anything related to it. I'm looking at interest rates. I'm looking at new home builds.
Yeah, Renita, I completely echo that. As someone that's also struggling to buy, struggling to grapple these mortgage rates, I completely understand. And the analyst community does still lean more bullish on this name, but not as bullish as they once were. We do have one analyst that has a sell. So interesting. We'll be watching for these numbers tomorrow after the close. Appreciate all of your insight, Renita Young, Senior Markets Correspondent. Now, coming up next, our under 30 name of the day is JetBlue, giving some guidance update. We'll dive more into that name with George Tillis coming up next.
WatchList can help you keep track of securities you're interested in. To add a watch list to the left sidebar, select the plus sign, then watch list. When the default list appears, select the name box, then create watch list. Enter a watch list name. To begin adding securities, enter a ticker symbol in the symbol box, then select enter. Continue adding all the symbols you want in your watch list, then select save. The existing list is replaced by the new one. You can also create watch lists from the Market Watch tab. After creating a watch list, you can add symbols to it from different locations across the platform. From the Charts tab, select the list icon and then add to watch list. From the Scan tab, right-click a security and then add to watch list. And that's how you make a watch list. For more demos on how to think or swim, head to the Education Center on tdameritrade.com.
Experience Think or Swim by TD Ameritrade. There's no going back.
Trading has changed forever as a new generation of investors make their impact on markets.
It's more important than ever to navigate through the frenzy of meme stocks, IPOs, and the next wave of tech.
And that's where we come in, discussing strategies and example trades on trending names.
Take control of your financial future. Next Gen Investing, weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern, only on the TD Ameritrade Network.
Welcome back to Next Gen Investing. It is time for Under 30. We're talking JetBlue. JetBlue, of course, been making news throughout the year, maybe buying, is buying. I can't even keep up with it anymore, but making news for a different reason this time. We got a little bit of a fundamental update from the company.
Yeah, and JetBlue, because of its fallout with Spirit, is the worst performing airline by a wide margin. But we did get a guidance update regarding weather, upcoming holiday travel. And here to tell us more on this update is George Tillis, Senior Markets Correspondent. George, I have to say, the funniest thing to me of all time is when people are so furious at these airlines when there's like a blizzard. And I know you live in a place with inclement weather. And I'm always like, why are we so mad at the airlines? Because there's weather. I mean, that's like Mother Nature. But regardless, JetBlue is saying they're preparing for that at least.
Yeah, I mean, you can't control the weather and the conditions associated with it, especially when it comes down to travel for airlines. I guess better be safe than sorry. So there were a lot of flight cancellations, but we just came off hurricane season as well. And I think this is one of the other reasons why JetBlue actually guided to the lower end of their guidance range, which is between 15 and 19% for revenue per available seat mile for Q4, but also it looks like they're in line when it comes down to the cost per available seat mile, which is actually higher by about 9.5% at the midpoint compared to where they were back in 2019. But I think the other issue with JetBlue, which really is pretty concentrated in the eastern corridor of the United States, they do fly in about 31 states as well as in the Caribbean. But in the eastern corridor states in the Caribbean, areas were certainly affected because of the previous hurricane season, which again has cost them a little bit of sales and, of course, earnings per share. But I think the other concern for JetBlue and the reason why the stock is down about 50% over the last year and about 63% over the last 3 years is what's going on with the acquisition of Spirit, because we know that this has been a costly and a very cumbersome acquisition competition with Frontier. The merger itself, which is still now not necessarily passed from the standpoint of antitrust regulation, they're not expecting anything to come about from a finalization standpoint until 2024. But at the same time, the acquisition, which was about $3.8 billion in cash, needs to be financed. And the concerns are really around debt, with about $3 billion of debt that's already organic to JetBlue, considering a market cap about $2.5 billion. Some estimates put the total debt as a combined unit now of $2.5 billion for JetBlue, which is its equity, and the $3.8 billion in equity for Spirit. That's a lot less than the $7 billion combined debt totals that is anticipated with, again, the combined unit, assuming they do get antitrust approval, because this would make the fifth largest domestic airline.
Georgia, I want to ask you a little bit more about that, sort of the thought process potentially behind the bidding war, really, that we watched in real time for that. Very different companies, Spirit and JetBlue.
and D is for delta. So you can look at the delta and you could look at the sign of the delta. If it's a positive delta, that would mean the direction of profitability is to the upside. If it's a negative, direction of positivity is to the downside, and also D is for delta. So just kind of think of D for direction and D for delta, Scott.
Got it. All right. So you remember the first letter of delta, then you'll remember the first letter of what it represents or what it measures. D for delta, D for direction. Right, so the stock moving up $1, moving down $1, perfect. All right, so we'll keep that cheat sheet going as we continue through Greek week, Ken. Now let's talk a little bit about the Greeks overall. Now we started with delta, but it wasn't just by chance that we did. Oftentimes people consider this one of the more important Greeks. Am I right on that, Ken?
Oh yeah, it certainly is one Greek that many option traders focus on, as it measures an options price every time the stock price moves. Since those values changes represent open profits and losses, delta is often the Greek that gets the greatest amount of attention, Scott.
Got it. All right. So people want to see, hey, the stock moved $1. What happened to my option? Like we just talked about that Amazon option we looked at. Now, gamma is, I guess, a close relative. You could maybe get us up to speed as what gamma measures are in terms of Greeks.
Right. Well, gamma is closely related to delta, as you mentioned. Gamma simply measures how much the delta changes after each $1 move in the stock. You can think of gamma as measuring how fast delta will change, Scott.
Okay. Tell you what, let's go back to the trade tab again, and we already have delta up there. Let's add gamma in the other column, and we'll look at them side by side and sort of put those together. So follow me back to the platform. I'm going to go over to the other column header and change that to gamma, and just drop down, click on gamma. There we go. So what exactly does gamma mean here? Well, let's go back to the exact option we were looking at before, the 90 strike call. And we know that the delta is 55 cents. So for a $1 move in the stock, you expect a 55-cent move in the option. Now, keep in mind that we're just looking at delta here. There are other Greeks, like Ken mentioned, that will affect the price, but we're keeping those constant and just looking at what delta would do. Now, what is gamma? Well, gamma tells you, like Ken said, let's say the stock does move $1. What is the new delta of this 90 strike call? Well, it should change by the gamma amount, which is 3 cents. And another way you could look at this, Ken, is if you move down one strike from 90 down to the 89 strike, you can see that delta goes from 55 to 58. That makes sense. That's that 3 cent difference we were just talking about. So I can see how that works. Let's talk a little bit more about the mechanics of gamma, if you could, Ken.
Sure, Scott. Well, as you mentioned, on the Thinkorswim trade tab, we can see how gamma works. The column number is the amount the delta will gain or lose depending on which way the stock moves. For calls, for example, the gamma amount is added to delta when the stock rises and subtracted when the stock falls.
Got it. All right, perfect. And we can see a gamma in the case of those stocks, those options that expire in a month, Kim, was about 3 cents. But keep in mind, if we look at options, I'm actually going back to the platform now. If I look at options that expire this week, like only 4 days away, you can see that gamma number changes. So for a $1 move in the stock, the option changes 6 cents in value. So it really kind of doubles. Now let's continue with our cheat sheet. How do we remember gamma? G for gamma. What do we do there, Ken?
Scott, well, because gamma represents the change in delta, and that change can be rapid or it can be a little bit slower. Just remember, G is for gas, like putting on the gas, and G is for gamma. So again, G is for gas and G is for gamma. Gamma is like a gas pedal that measures how fast the delta changes.
All right, an easy way to remember. Ken, we just have a few seconds here. Could you just kind of wrap up and talk a little bit about delta and gamma, and maybe when it comes to options strategies, what a trader might be thinking?
Sure. Well, they are definitely important considerations when choosing strategies and strikes, first from a price sensitivity standpoint and second from a probability standpoint. Keep in mind that buying an out-of-the-money call, for example, has a lower delta, but it also has a lower probability of profit. However, if the stock rises, the delta does increase. Those are some key things to keep in mind, Scott.
All right. Well, Ken, we got to wrap it up there. But again, thanks for a great introduction and a good kickoff to the Greek week. And I think everyone has a better idea of delta and gamma and an easy way to remember them. Thanks again, Ken. Look forward to finishing out the different sessions. All right, now stay with us, because coming up next, we're going back into the Thinkorswim platform, and we're going to look at top 10 watch lists, how those can easily be accessed on the platform. We'll be back after this short break.
Many traders may be willing to take on additional risk in pursuit of aggressive growth in their portfolio. More power to them. But if you're looking for a less risky alternative, you might want to consider checking out our income investing course. In the income investing course, you'll explore investing strategies designed to generate regular income and preserve capital. First, we'll delve into risk and return preferences. You will learn about the different ways to allocate a portfolio and create a payment schedule. Then we'll take a deep dive into the assets commonly held in income portfolios: dividend stocks, bonds, equity REITs, and cash. You'll also learn about routines for managing a portfolio over time. Along the way, you'll watch videos, take quizzes, and perform paper trades to practice your new skills. So if you're looking for an edge, consider your education. Head to the Education tab on Thinkorswim for the income investing course and a whole lot more.
Binge watch the market with TD Ameritrade Network. The dollar, interesting activity.
So now I did some deep research into this.
People are out of the house and engaging with the U.S. economy. Tune in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on TDAmeritradenetwork.com and all your favorite streaming services.
You can also take us on the go with our CarPlay-enabled iOS app and our audio-only podcasts. TD Ameritrade Network, available anytime, anywhere, on any device.
We empower those who act. Those who see the correlation between things above and things below the surface. Those who navigate risk by meeting every turn with a heightened awareness of what's possible. Constant assessment. Determine the best position. Catch the perfect wave. CME Group, where risk meets opportunity.
Welcome back to Your First Trade. I'm Scott Connor. Now let's turn our attention back to the Thinkorswim platform. We're going to talk about top 10 watch lists. Now to begin, of course, a watch list is a collection of symbols grouped together so that data of its respective components can be, of course, reviewed collectively. Now there are several pre-built watch lists on Thinkorswim, but what we're going to focus on is the top 10 winners and losers on two of the major U.S. exchanges. That would be the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange. Now, today you'll learn how to easily identify stocks with the biggest percentage moves, the most activity, and those with significant changes in volatility. Now, how does this particular feature on Thinkorswim benefit traders and investors? Well, individual watch lists allow traders to monitor symbol groups they're interested in, of course. Now, the top 10 list has broad application by including stocks that stand out in terms of significant or unusual activity. Now, here's where traders can easily access the continuously updating lists with one click. And then, of course, you can move symbols from any of those watch lists throughout the Thinkorswim platform, should need be. And obviously, this gives traders a sort of a broad perspective outside of maybe just stocks they have in an individual watch list, is what's happening on the broader picture, particularly with the major exchanges. Now, let's talk a little bit about how this works on Thinkorswim. Of course, watch lists can be open in different places on the platform. A lot of times we look at the left sidebar, but we're going to start on the Market Watch tab. And what we do is we'll simply click on Quotes, and which is the sub tab, and then click on the symbol box. We'll drop down and we'll choose top 10. I'll show you how this works here in just a second. Now, from there, the top 10 stocks with percentage moves, net gains or losses from those two major exchanges can be viewed. Now, the difference between net changes and percentage changes can be significant, and this is important. And the names on these two lists can vary as well. Now, in addition, the most actively traded stocks from these exchanges can be grouped, as you'll see as well. So I think what we'll do is we'll start off by looking at stocks that fall into some of these categories and break down the process ourselves. So let's go through it. I'm going to go right into the Thinkorswim platform now. We are on the Trade tab. I'm going to hide the left sidebar again so we can just focus in on where we're going to start. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to the Market Watch tab first. We'll go there. And of course, I'm looking at a heat map right now, but I'm going to move over, as I mentioned, to the sub tab of Quotes. Now, click on that. And whatever you have in there is fine. But if you want to change the quotes you're doing, follow along with me. I go to the column header above whatever it is that's chosen. Now, you'll see a drop down of personal watch lists. We can see all the pre-built watch lists here as well. But we're going down to top 10. All right, so let's stop there, go over to the right side, and you can see, just let's run through these together real quick. So you have top 10% gainers, top 10% gainers on NASDAQ, of course, and NYSE. Then you have percentage loss. Then you have active stocks. Then you have net gains and net losses, and of course, Sizzle. We'll get down to these if we have time as well. Why don't we start off with the first one? We'll go right to the top of the list and go to the top 10 percentage gainers on the NASDAQ exchange. So let's click on that and take a quick look here. Now, what we're doing is we're looking at percentage changes here. So you can see right away, there are some stocks with some rather large percentage gains. This one has a 9,000% gain. This one is 976%. So keep in mind that when you're looking at percentage gains, that oftentimes will be a list of stocks that maybe don't have a lot of value to begin with. So if it's a sort of a low price stock that has a significant move in one day, well, that can be big in terms of percentage. So if we go to the last column, we can see, yeah, look at a lot of these stocks, $2, $7, $2.84, $2.92, some of them a little bit higher, $14.31. But oftentimes when you're looking percentage gains, keep in mind that might be the stocks that definitely move that way. So an important takeaway. Now let's go back to the monitor tab again. I'm sorry, to the Market Watch. We're going to go back to the top 10 list, go back to top 10. And so in this time, instead of looking at percentage gain, we'll stay with a NASDAQ again, but we'll go to top 10 most active on the NASDAQ. So let's click on that and take a quick look there. Now we can just see which stocks were most active, and you can see what those net gains were, 16, 15, 14, you can see that entire list. And you can see a lot of the stocks in this have obviously a higher value, if you will, in dollar terms as well. Let's go back and go back to that list again and go down to top 10. And we did look at percentage gains and losses. Now we had the most active. Now let's go to net gain. And we'll stay with the NASDAQ this time and look at net gain. So again, now we're just looking at how much a stock went up, gained in a day. So let's look at that one. Now you can see the net gain here is in dollar terms. So here we have stocks that move $12, $13, $14, $60. But again, take a look at the last price of some of these. That stock that has $60 move is a stock that's over $2,000 in value. And when you look at the percentage gain, again, that's much smaller. That's less than 3% move. So you would expect to see when we're looking at net gains, just looking at the actual value or dollar value per share, that we're going to most likely see stocks that have a higher value. So again, but a good takeaway here when you're looking at those. We can just take a look at one here. Coupa Software today up 26% with a 16% percentage move. And again, this had some news today as well. Now let's keep going. Go back there. And again, what we're going to do now is look at something a little bit different. We'll go to the top 10 list. I'm going to drop down to sizzling stocks. Now, what is sizzling stocks? Well, basically, sizzling talks a little bit about stocks that have had a bigger move or greater than the last 5 days average move, right? Now, again, what these stocks can include is unusual activity around a stock because of an event or a corporate action. And let's take a quick look at some of those. So I'm going to go ahead and click on top 10 sizzling stocks. And you can see, and of course, where I think, let's take a quick look here at the sizzle. Now, when you're seeing a percentage gains here, it's the volume number we're looking at here. So these are stocks that had big volume gains over their last 5-day average. I'm going to look at this one right here, Meridian Bioscience, traded over 5 million shares, and that's symbol VIVO. I'm going to go back to the charts here and just put VIVO in there. Let's take a quick look, VIVO. So we know that this stock was trading way beyond its normal volume. And you can see the stock had a big move today, but let's take a look at the volume sort of comparatively down below here and look at the spike in volume today. So obviously 5 million shares when a stock normally trades maybe just a couple thousand shares a day, perhaps. So obviously that there was something happening there. Now remember, you can always go to news on the Thinkorswim platform and take a look and say, all right, well, here's a stock that is up 7% on takeover news. So again, makes perfect sense. This stock made a big move, but again, where was that found? Well, again, we went to Market Watch tab, went to top 10 sizzle, what stocks were trading well beyond their normal volume, and of course that one popped up. All right, so now you have an idea of how the top 10 list can be used, where it's found on the Thinkorswim platform. So I would say check that out. All right, now stay with us, because coming up next, we're going to talk about building an iron condor option strategy. Of course, this will be an example trade based on Lennar, And also, we're going to break down the charts with Pat Mullally. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Watchlist can help you keep track of securities you're interested in. To add a watch list to the left sidebar, select the plus sign, then watch list. When the default list appears, select the name box, then create watch list. Enter a watch list name. To begin adding securities, enter a ticker symbol in the symbol box, then select enter. Continue adding all the symbols you want in your watch list